Acheron is finally here and she looks crazy. Her animations are absolutely insane. I mean, her skill is literally just Sealer's ult. And from what people have been theory crafting in pre-release, her damage is looking quite promising. Oh yeah, on top of all that, she's hot as fuck. Now despite all this, Acheron isn't perfect. She's not a must-pull character for now at least, and she definitely isn't going to completely break the game's meta. And for most of the player base, there is one big problem that you need to know before you pull for her. Now before I go into it, I really just want to shut down one thing that I've seen some people bring up that I think is a complete non-factor, and that is her limited team building. Now I'm going to admit even I had a little visual mentioning this as one of her downsides in a previous video about Sparkle, and I can definitely understand why some players might see this as a downside, but there are definitely more positives when you actually think about it. The current support cast is wanted by almost every DPS. Sparkle, Bronya, Ranmei, and Tingyun, they pretty much are best in slot supports for everyone except for Acheron. Acheron actually prefers to play with Nihility teammates to activate her passive that gives her a massive damage boost. And currently in the game, those are gonna be Pella and Silverwolf. Now these two are pretty good units that some teams do want, especially someone like Dr. Ratio who wants debuffs, except I can guarantee that most players will find these two debuffers available more often than not. An easy example of this is to look at two of our more popular DPS units in Imbibe the Lune and Jingyuan. So let's say the MOC is Lightning Weak one side and then Imaginary Weak the other, which actually happens quite often. Let's start with the Jingyuan team. He's going to want Sparkle for the massive buffs and advance forward, and he's also going to want Tingyun for those energy buffs and attack buffs, plus another sustain unit. Now if you move over to Imbibe the Lune, his best team is also going to want Sparkle for more of the skill points and also the other buffs, and then Tingyun for the same thing, those attack and energy buffs. Now you can definitely still clear with Jingyuan and Imbibe the Lune and just use other weaker supports, but it's definitely not going to be the most fun, especially with the team that has to use a slightly scuffed setup. Now if we used Acheron instead of Jingyuan as our lightning DPS, we can now give Imbibe the Lune Sparkle and Tingyun for his highest ceiling team, and Acheron is just going to take Silverwolf and Pella for her best team. Now one thing I haven't seen many people talking about is Acheron can still use Harmony units. Let's say you really need Silverwolf in your ratio team, so you can't put Acheron with her, and you don't have any other good Nihility characters built. It's not like if she only has one Nihility teammate, she just does 0 damage. She just doesn't get to utilize this passive, which is still a huge buff for her, but it's not completely character ruining. Now obviously the performance of a Sparkle Pella duo versus a Silverwolf Pella duo can definitely vary depending on the investment, but even when you're losing the passive that Acheron has, Sparkle is adding a ton of her own buffs and her advance forward, which at worst can definitely still come close to double Nihility. Now if you haven't caught on quite yet, basically what I'm saying is this downside of really wanting Nihility characters honestly comes off more as a benefit. Your DPS units are going to have full freedom on picking support characters, and Acheron isn't even going to lose anything using Silverwolf and Pella. After all, our other DPS units can't exactly run Silverwolf and Pella as two supports and still output their normal damage. And then on top of that, we have the future characters coming out. So right now, Silverwolf and Pella are her best teammates, but I can almost guarantee in the future there's going to be a big debuffing character soon, since other than Silverwolf, we haven't even gotten a real limited 5-star that purely specializes in debuffing. Think of something like a 5-star version of Pella and what they could do for an Acheron team. Now going back to that actual one real problem with Acheron, and this shouldn't really surprise anyone keeping up with all the discussion about her character, it's just going to be our light cone options. Now Nihility was never designed as a DPS class. I mean the in-game official description literally says applies debuffs to enemies to reduce their combat capacities. This obviously means we really are lacking in free-to-play light cones that work for DPS units in Nihility, like Acheron. Now other than the limited 5-stars, her only real options are going to be Goodnight Sleep Well and Welt's light cone. Now on the screen right now are some weapon calcs done by a TC and YouTuber called Kazjair, and as you can see at E0, her signature is 13% better than the next best option, which is a pretty significant margin. Now what this doesn't show us is how much damage you're going to be getting from the extra debuff that helps stack her ult faster. Now if you didn't know, Acheron's signature actually helps her apply an extra debuff that helps her stack her ult. So that 13% is lower than what you're actually going to be losing for not having her light cone. And above all that, Good Night Sleep Well isn't even a free-to-play friendly option, which really puts her best free-to-play light cone as Welt's light cone, which you can buy from this shop, which now makes the DPS increase at 20% before even taking into account extra ults. For me personally, this is the main reason I used my guarantee 5-star on Jingran instead of Acheron, because I don't even have a single copy of Good Night Sleep Well, and would be stuck with Welt's light cone. I'll definitely still be sending everything I have to maybe snatch her early or win 50-50, but this problem definitely put me off quite a bit. Now, does this mean Acheron's gonna suck without her light cone? Absolutely not. She's still going to be a top DPS unit. She's just probably not going to reach the heights of Jingliu or even maybe Imbibed Lune without her signature. And that's with what we're currently working with in the game. So when better debuffing teammates come out, maybe a free-to-play light cone Acheron will even be better than Jingliu and Danheng. So yeah, if this light cone thing has put you off a bit, firstly, if you like Acheron, just pull her. You won't regret it. She might not be meta defining for your account, but definitely just wait and check out gameplay footage to see if she's going to be good enough for you. Just be a little wary because the current MOC buff does have this trotter that helps stack her ult a bit faster than it normally would. So she might look a little better now than she will later. And that's pretty much it. If you are going to be going for her, good luck with your pulls. Thanks for watching.